All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to get started, and afterward we will take questions one by one. So please just remain muted while we have each of our speakers make their statement, but we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Thank you for being here. Meryl, take it away.
Thank you all for showing up today. Just want to let you know that we are a group of nonpartisan, concerned community leaders and religious leaders from various segments of the Pittsburgh community. And we're just grouped together in a grassroots effort to try and combat hate and vitriol that might come out of this upcoming election. As I said, we are nonpartisan. We are mainly based on the concept of this is no place for hate. I was very involved in the aftermath of in the community reaction and aftermath of the shootings at the Tree of Life Synagogue. And quickly after that occurred, the community adopted the phrase, no place for hate. And really that's what we're basing this entire, as you could see, that's what the name preceding this conference was. And that's what we're basing this conference on, or this conversation on, that with the rally that is due to occur here on Friday with Ron DeSantis and Mastriano, we feel that this is bringing the wrong message to the wrong place. We are steeped in the belief that this is no place for hate, that we do not put up with Christian nationalism. We do not advocate anyone who allies himself with gab.com. We believe in equality among races, among ethnic groups, and we feel that two of them represent exactly the opposite of that. So that's why we're speaking out at this time, and we welcome any questions that you may have. I'd like to turn it over now to my friend Jeff Letwin, another leader in the Jewish community.
Thank you, Meryl. And I'm going to echo some of Meryl's comments, but I probably will go a little further because this is personal. This is personal to me. I have been speaking out about Doug Mastriano's affiliation with Gab, the website so fraught with anti-Semitic and racist sentiments, because in addition to being concerned about the future of Pennsylvania, I am a 62-year-long member of the Tree of Life. In addition to having had all of our family life cycle events there, I have worked tirelessly in the effort to rebuild the synagogue after the tragic events of 1027, which also involved New Light Congregation and Dor Hadash Congregation. I knew many of the victims and understood the pain of their families. This should have never happened. It may not have happened, but for these online havens that embolden neo-Nazis and white supremacists and other hate groups. But this is who Doug Mastriano has decided to affiliate with, even as a candidate for Pennsylvania's highest office. Make no mistake, these groups are a direct threat to the Jewish community, the communities of color, and to all religious minorities. Mastriano's ties to Gab are alarming. They're disgusting, they're terrifying, but they're not surprising. This is yet another example of Mastriano's obsession with dangerous hatred in our communities. Mastriano's campaign contingent waved the 3%ers flag through the streets of Glenside on July 4th of July parade. Mastriano attended the January 6th insurrection, downplaying it and comparing it to Nazi Germany. Mastriano compared efforts for gun control to Nazi Germany, and he has claimed that Roe was so much worse than the Holocaust. Next, let me say how shocked I am that Ron DeSantis, the governor of a state with a large Jewish population, would align himself with extremist candidates like Doug Mastriano. He'll have to answer to his electorate, especially in his gubernatorial race. Frankly, we don't need Mr. DeSantis coming here to Pittsburgh, where this community has proved itself, as Meryl said, to be stronger than hate. As for Mr. Mastriano, after our last press conference calling out his affiliation with Gab, he took down his Gab account, but he has refrained from denouncing its founder, who frequently shares his anti-Semitic beliefs online. This has included death threats and calls for violence against Jews. There can be no place in Pennsylvania government for this kind of extremism. Pennsylvania is a proud state which welcomes people from all faiths. We can't let that change. We brought this group together to show a united front against hate, just as this entire Pittsburgh community stood shoulder to shoulder on 1027 and afterward to support our community.
My history brings me here. I grew up in southern Georgia in the midst of the civil rights movement. As a fourth grader, I integrated the Crawford Street Elementary School. I know I don't look that old, but I've had that life lived experience. I did not experience the vitriol in Georgia that I experience now. I'm now old enough to proudly declare I have 4 grandchildren that now live in an environment that I did not experience. I cannot appreciate how hard it's going to be for my grandchildren to live in this society. The notion of Christian nationalism is an affront to me. As a preacher, as a cleric, it's an affront because it is totally inconsistent with the gospel that I preach and the gospel that is inherent in our sacred writings. It is nothing consistent with the teachings of a Jewish guy by the name of Jesus. And so I find it an affront that Mastriano and DeSantis would come to Pittsburgh, a place where I've stood shoulder to shoulder with my Islamic brothers and my Jewish brothers to stand against such hate and vitriol, to come here to declare that this kind of ugliness is a part of what they think America should be. They stand with a person from my home state, Marjorie Taylor Greene, that believes that the Republican Party should become the Christian Nationalist Party. I think that is a grand affront to anyone that's an American citizen. And so I stand here today, I'm joined with you and everyone in this call to demand that we stand and say, not in this America. I believe we have an opportunity to share our voices and say we are stronger than hate. Hate has no place in these United States. It should not have a place in the gubernatorial race, and it definitely should not have a place in the governor's mansion here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So I hope that we will stand firm to love one another. The travesty that happened with the Tree of Life, we also talked about loving our neighbor. We need to love our neighbors in a very powerful way. And if we do that, we'll bring back and restore a beloved community, a community that is worthy of all of us, and that we can appreciate our different values and love each of our own humanities. So I just hope that we will stand and you will stand as we move forward to love each other and be a better place. With that said, I turn it over to my brother Biswas from the Islamic Center of Pittsburgh.
Okay. Peace be upon to all of you. Greetings from Islamic Center of Pittsburgh. I really am a registered independent in the state of Pennsylvania. So I vote with issues personally. So I'm not here to say that I support a Republican candidate or a Democrat candidate, but what I'm talking about is hate mongering. And really, when you have the nationalism, religious nationalism, it turns into ethnic nationalism, it turns into Zingoism, and at the end, it's all about hate, hating the others who doesn't look the same way that I look at things, or who doesn't look the way I am. So Thomas Jefferson had himself a Quran in his collections, and founders of this country explicitly discussed on the inclusion of other people in America, even though there was probably not even any Muslims at that time, but they talked about including other people, whether it's Muslims or any other religious. So America became a beacon of hope because of that. I can see the way some of us left our own country because it took a turn into nationalism or other forms of hating each other. And that's why we came here to escape those persecutions. It is a great tragedy and disappointment in some of us in the US would prefer to go down to the road of religious nationalism. Great pain and separated families were in wars and terrorism. fed by the idea of one religion is superior than the other should be excluded from Pennsylvania. The ideology is a direct threat to the American Islamic community, who are explicitly demonized and targeted, and also our Jewish brothers and sisters and other religious minorities. Anti-Islamic rhetoric is already widespread throughout the media and movies. Hate crimes against Muslims individuals are common. Mosques are regularly vandalized. There have been 7 incidents in the last few years, even in Pennsylvania. Imams are being targeted and killed, for example, of our neighbors in Ohio, Columbus recently. So the threat of ideology is very real to me and my American Islamic community. It is deplorable that gubernatorial candidate would promote this openly. In fact, that Mastriano is already, as a state senator, is cause of a great concern. I'm very disappointed that Pittsburgh would welcome this patent hate monger who uses fear and ignorance to sow the division among the good people in Pennsylvania. At the end, I want to end with a quote of my beloved prophet, peace be upon him. In his last sermon, he said, and I'm taking one section, it's a beautiful piece of literature. If you have time to read it, it'll be great. He says, all mankind is from Adam and Eve, and Arab has no superiority over non-Arab, and non-Arab has no superiority over Arab. Also, white has no superiority over black, nor black has any superiority over white, except by piety and good action. And that's how we'd like to have our society. I remember the day Tree of Life was attacked, and we were having a meeting in Islamic Center of Pittsburgh. That was our Sunday board meeting. And as soon as we hear it, we rushed there. We were probably the first group of people that was there since morning, about 11 o'clock or 11:30 or something like that. I don't recall the exact time. And we shared the pain. We don't want to share any hate. I thank you for the opportunity.
My name is Rabbi Jamie Gibson. I am the retired rabbi of Temple Sinai in Squirrel Hill, less than a mile from Tree of Life. And yet, that's not why I'm speaking today. I'm speaking because in the press over the last few months, we have the following quotes from Doug Mastriano, saying the separation of church and state was a myth. In November, we're going to take our state back. My God will make it so. His wife said, when you're against God's plan, there is nothing that will stop it. And they, meaning those who oppose them, are very worried right now that there's nothing that's going to stop this. And as Jeff Letwin referred to, the CEO of Gab said this is an explicitly Christian country, and said there was no room even for Jewish conservatives in his movement, although they would not be forced to convert or be exiled. I am a teacher of text, and the sacred text in America is called the Constitution. And these people who promote this exclusivity should be informed that A, God as a word is found nowhere in the federal Constitution. That the First Amendment guarantees my right by saying that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or prohibiting free exercise thereof. That means even though my Jewish beliefs and my practice have a different idea about abortion or other major issues in this country, my views cannot be excluded because of the First Amendment. We know that George Washington himself in 1790 wrote the Toro Congregation of Rhode Island saying that this government gives bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance. It requires only that we live as citizens under the protection of the laws. The President Jefferson, in his treaty with Barbary in 1796, wrote explicitly, the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. It has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslims. And Thomas Jefferson went on in his letter to the Danbury Baptists, saying, I contemplate with sovereign reverence that the act of the whole American people, which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. Although not in the Constitution, those words were consecrated by our third president. The very text of our founding fathers' documents speaks against the exclusivity and the hatred that follows from it by this candidate and those who follow him. And that is why I speak against him today, or against what he says and stands for, and will continue to do so through the election.
All right, at this time, if you have a question for one of our participants, please just send a message through the chat, and then we can go from there, and I'll unmute you if you have a question.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for doing this. JD Pros, PennLive.com. I just had a question. Do you plan any protests for Friday to be out there? Anything to get this message across to the folks who will be attending this rally event? Who will be standing in line, anything like that? I guess anything beyond this.
We're not planning one, not this group anyway.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
All right, David has some questions. David Rua, go ahead.
Hi, I was wondering if you're worried about violence or more extremism if Mastriano does get elected?
I do think that is a concern. We've learned, and I hate to always go back to Tree of Life, but we have learned that rhetoric can promote violence within a community or against a community. And I think, I don't want to speak for everyone, I can only speak for myself, but I do have the concern that if he were to be elected and continue to speak the way he does and have the followers that he does, that it could incite violence. And that obviously would be a great concern.
I echo the same sentiments. I think that's a very, very much a reality, very much a possibility if he is elected as the governor of our Commonwealth.
The very fact that he has not stood up and denounced Torba or what Torba stands for is a clear indication that we need to be concerned. We cannot sit back and be complacent. We know what happens. We especially know what happens historically when people are complacent about their position.
All right, next go with Dave. Did you have another question?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, Chris Potter, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, hi everybody. Thanks for doing this. As Mr. Letwin noted, Senator Mastriano did delete his account on Gab, and he said its founder, Andrew Torba, does not speak for him. I'm wondering if there's any step he could take at this point that would repair the breach here, that would kind of undo the damage that you're talking about, or is it simply just too late?
Well, I think, like Representative Franco indicated when we raised this at the last press conference, although he didn't use these exact words, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, it's very difficult to put it back in. And just unlinking his affiliation with the account, he has not taken the steps, as I said before, to denounce Torba, and he still is reaching out to the same sort of folks who typically affiliate with Gab. I think he's shown his colors. I mean, I don't see how there's an ability to undo what's been done. He has not stood up and taken a very firm position against Gab, what it stands for, and what their followers stand for.
As long as his campaign is framed in the rhetoric of Christian nationalism, Muslims and Jews and liberal Christians are all under threat. We've learned to our dear cost that words matter. And when people say they want to harm us, we now believe them because they've done it. So until he unlinks his campaign from the rhetoric of Christian nationalism, I'm extremely concerned that people will act on that nationalism in ways that harm actual human beings, Muslims, Jews, and even liberal Christians.
And if I could just add another point to that, and that was a great point, Rabbi Gibson. He has had the opportunity when the media has come to his events to try to disassociate himself, but instead of responding to the media, the tendency is just to remove what they call the quote mainstream media from those events and refuses to answer. So that's certainly indicative of a not very sincere approach just by unlinking his account.
And I'd like to remind everyone that the last thing that the shooter at the Tree of Life building did before he entered the building, guns a-blazing, was to post on Gab. So he used that as a vehicle to, first of all, to become radicalized in the first place, and then to continue on with his trying to spread his message. And unfortunately, he has been quoted several times by other shooting perpetrators in other instances in other communities. So it's very dangerous.
All right, Bob Mayo. Bob, are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I clicked to unmute as you were unmuting me, and so undid the unmuting. Sorry about that. No, this is being recorded back in our newsroom. I'm back in the field. I was on another story, so forgive me. I missed the first few minutes, and I'll be catching up when I view the video. But just to address this, those of you coming together here today to make this presentation together, how did this come to be organized, and is your coming together to express this message something that's affiliated with or organized by the Shapiro campaign?
And just to clarify, Bob is with WTAE.
Yes, sorry.
It is not organized by the Shapiro campaign. It's really started, I mean, just over the past couple days or not even weeks, a group of people who know each other and who have expressed concern to each other. In my opening, I did say it is a nonpartisan group of concerned citizens. We each have our own contacts, and the group is small right now, but it likely will grow. We've individually sent out emails to our own contact list, trying to engage other people. So I suspect this group will grow significantly, but it is not an official group of any sort. It is just folks, just people like us.
I mean, when you see a clear and present danger coming to your way, it's organic. People get together because they don't want to be a victim, and they don't want to be the receiving end of the hate, and hatred. The senator has a long history of associating himself and then disassociating himself. It's a pattern that we lived through a few years back. I know as a Muslim how hostile I felt in certain places, even in Pittsburgh, which is a pretty liberal city, but you still feel that the rhetoric and what comes out of the rhetoric and how people act or react to certain rhetoric. So I don't think it has anything to do with the other camp of the politics. It's just we feel, and I feel personally, that this will harm us. This really will harm us, and I'm really worried about it.
I would suggest that if we understand that when someone speaks hate and they reveal themselves to you, you need to take a posture of defense. And this is a defensive, preemptive move to say no to this type of action coming to the city of Pittsburgh or any place in America. We cannot be silent. We cannot not address this. So it is organic. I came aware of it literally 2 days ago, and I broke my schedule to be here because I think it's so important.
All right, are there any other questions at this time? Please message me if so. Meanwhile, I'll ask our panelists if they're to just think about if there's anything they'd like to say before we end this press conference.
I just want to say I'm honored to be with Brother Biswas and to be with Reverend Freeman, who are proven allies, not just this week in the face of hate coming to Pittsburgh, but in the 5 years since Charlottesville, not just the shooting at Tree of Life, and in the constant threat of extremists garbing their plans and policies in religious language, which harms us or plans to harm us. So thank you to my brothers.
I would just like to also thank the media who did show up for this and recognizing how important this is. The message must continue. we've got a long road ahead, and we really appreciate the fact that you're covering it.
And I would also like to comment that this is not a moment of hysteria on our part. It is a concerted effort, really just to talk sensibly, talk reasonably, and appeal to people who understand. And I'll just get back to, this is no place for hate. It's on t-shirts, it's on windows, it's on yard signs. But we really believe that. We believe that not that Pittsburgh is the only place, but it's a very special place. And we don't want that hate here. We just don't want it here. And we don't want it in Pennsylvania. And whatever we can do to combat it and to contrast it, as the Reverend said, he changed his schedule. I think all of us did. I mean, we all have day jobs, but this is so important to us that, we really put everything on pause just to be able to be here today and to continue this fight, this effort. I don't want to use the word fight, this effort.
I just want to add that I'm honored to be in this crowd. We made so much stride in the last few years, not just, although it is one of the biggest tragedy that happened recently in Pittsburgh from Tree of Life, but even before then, I can remember, how many times I had meal with Reverend, meal with Rabbi Gibson, and how many times I went to Dor Hadash, and how many times I went to Tree of Life. We're actually on the right path. We are doing great things, and all of a sudden this thing comes up and throws us off. And it's really, Pittsburgh is really becoming a very good place to live. We have shown that we can live together with peace and harmony, and air our differences in a civilized way. And this is just, as I said, we have lived through a certain few years ago where the community and the whole country was in a very weird place, distrust and, not being able to talk to your neighbors and all those things. We don't want this here. We don't want any one of this here anymore. And we will be, getting bigger and bigger, and we'll be making sure that this is not no place for hate. And I'd like to thank everyone for hearing us and giving us the opportunity to get our word out.
Thank you all so much for joining us. We will momentarily have up on the screen the email and contact info for any further media inquiries. And thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your day.